Bourget.
Here.
Rosa.
Here.
Timmons here. White here. DeMarsh.
Yes.
Do I need to call?
No.
At this time, I'll open it for limited public comment. This can be in reference to anything on or not on the agenda. I'll open that at 7:03. Hearing none, I'll close that at the same time. At this time, we'll look to approve the agenda. I personally have a few edits to the agenda. Under correspondence, I'd like to make the addition of an email correspondence that was to all PC members from Tim Hurt. And also, I believe it was a typed up, I don't really know how that came together, but
He
there's a
directed us at
correspondence
first.
from Mark
Yes.
Poniowski. P-O-N-I-E-T.
That was delivered in person.
On a Township.
Tim Hart was the other one, yeah. Also, under old business, number 1, it should be accessory height ordinance, not supplemental. Didn't notice that until I was reviewing it.
It should be what?
Accessory height ordinance, not supplemental, because I don't really know what that is. Does anybody else have any other changes to the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda with changes to correspondence and to the new business number, old business number 1.
Second.
Second, okay, thank you. All in favor of the agenda with the addition of 2 correspondence and the alteration of number 1 under old business, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. At this time, I'll inquire into any conflicts of interest from members of the commission. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar.
The purpose is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together for one broad motion without discussion. A request to remove any item for discussion later in the agenda for any member of the board, staff, or public shall be prompted.
Read through the items.
Okay.
Sure.
Township board minutes of 1/7/14, undrafted, unapproved minutes of the township board minutes, the planning and zoning administrative report from 12/1/13 to 1/31/14, and draft unapproved minutes of planning commission meetings 1/13/14.
We missed the ZBA.
Planning and zoning administrative report? Oh, it's not even on here.
It's right on, no, oh, here.
Oh, there's that. Planning and zoning administrative report, oh, ZBA meeting minutes 1/9/14.
Okay, would anybody like any items removed?
Yes.
Yes.
What?
The unapproved planning commission meeting minutes from 1/13/14. I have a correction.
Okay, I'd also like to remove the planning zoning administrative update. Anything else? Okay, so I don't have to get a motion for the consent calendar. Do I?
Yes.
Yeah.
But first you should ask the audience if they'd like anything from.
Is there anything from the audience? That was a free-for-all. Okay.
Then you need a motion to approve the consent calendar, even though there's
As
only one
amended.
item. Yeah.
So really, we're not saving any time with it today.
Not tonight.
Okay, actually, that's not true. There's 2 items on here.
Fine.
We're saving tons of time. Anyway, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar with the items of Township Board meeting minutes and the ZBA meeting minutes.
I would make a motion to approve that.
I would second.
I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor of approving the consent calendar with the township board minutes of 1/7 and the ZBA meeting minutes of 1/9, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Okay, we're gonna go down to item 1, on items removed from the consent calendar. We're at the PC minutes.
We've had a request to add a little bit more so that one of the people that was here at the last minute feels that they wanted to have their comments more formalized.
Okay.
Do you want me to read it, or do we just want to enter it in?
We should read it, I would think. We have it in a written form, is it best to read it?
Yeah, I think it is appropriate to read it. One caveat that I want to make when we start talking about amending what someone said, the minutes should reflect what you said, not what you wanted or meant to say. That makes sense. So as long as the amendment is what you said and not what you wanted to say,
Okay.
then approving the minutes with the changes. Okay.
And as a caveat also with comments, if you have exact commentary that you would like recorded, the best way to do it would be to send us correspondence so that we can put it into the record exactly how you want it scripted, essentially. Like Jeff said, minutes are capturing conversations and they're not verbatim. So I go ahead and read that, but I have in no way fact-checked if that's what was actually, if that relates to exactly what was said.
The gentleman that wrote it is Brian Kelly from 4893 Ridgecrest. He moved to Acme 30 years ago, trying to come up to speed on Acme Township planning documents, was concerned with the timeliness and completeness of public release so the public can make educated comments, participate in the process. Many missing pages from draft Acme 5-year master plan were unavailable. Master park plan, draft still mentions construction of splash pad feature. John Ives stated that the revised master plan was posted online today. He was shocked to see trailer parks in the farming area. White replied that they were for migrant workers, asked about manufactured housing development on farmland and density. Wensloff responded that it was to give people more affordable housing options, which was the gist of the meeting. And the gentleman had recorded it and went over his records and made it, just filled in some of the gaps he felt I missed when I captured down his comments.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the planning commission feels that's an accurate representation versus what was written in this draft.
I believe it was from what I said. Who else was quoted?
John I.
John? Yeah, I believe you said that it would be available. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So we have that's just getting edited then. Under the public comment, correct?
Correct.
So that would replace the part starting with Brian Kelly and ending with Wensloff responded that it was to give people more affordable housing options. Okay. Are there any other changes to the minutes? Nope.
Did you want to make any grammatical changes at this time?
How bad are they?
Not there.
Yeah, and if there's changes to be made, you should make them, because what you approve should be the final.
Right. I just want to get clarification on the spelling of marijuana. Are we going to go with a J or an H? Because it's
Hold on.
inconsistent.
I happen to have the substitute bill 4271. We'll see how the state of Michigan.
They call it an H.
They use an H. I can't remember if that's what we used in the ordinance or not. But they use an H, so. H, I would say.
Well, let's verify.
Yeah,
there.
H is in the ordinance too. That's what's used in the ordinance.
Okay. Really?
If we could just be consistent with the way, as a board, or whatever, we're spelling it, that would be great. Because I know on our,
I know in public documents everywhere else, it's all always J. That's what's...
It would be embarrassing if we got it wrong and it didn't work as intended.
well, if we got it wrong, the state got it wrong. So,
Yeah.
It's the state's fault.
We'll blame them.
The dictionary says it can be spelled either way.
Yep, yeah, I looked it up too yesterday.
I have a recent decision from the Supreme Court in front of me where they refer to the Medical Marijuana Act with an H, and in the same sentence, they refer to the medical use of marijuana with a J.
Okay.
So, there you have it. There's your answer.
Is there some like APA style book on how to write marijuana? Because I don't, that's really strange. Okay, so we're gonna allow them to be used interchangeably, but note that it'd be nice if we were consistent, and as long as we're consistent with our ordinance, I think that's probably fair, right?
And the
Okay,
ordinance says uses H.
okay.
I'm good with that.
So at this point, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes with that alteration to the public comments.
I'll make that motion.
No motion, do we have a second?
Sure, yes. Yes, we have a second.
Okay. Finch is coming in with the seconds today. Okay. At this time,
Wait, that was for even that.
yeah, with support from Finch. Okay, we'll now vote on approving the PC minutes from the 113 meeting with the alteration of the public comment. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. All right, moving on, the PC update. I just wanted to make one note before we receive and file that, correct? Yeah. Number 4 says the planning commission adopted an ordinance for keeping of chickens. I believe that the board adopted that. We just recommended that it be adopted. Because it's doing things that we can't do.
You recommended that it be adopted in December. The board adopted it
Right, I just wanted to clip, it's nitpicky. I just wanted,
February. This month.
no, it
I
was
think it's
January.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just want to be clear in here,
Right.
if people are reading it, what we actually do is recommend to the board that it be adopted.
Mhm.
So with that, I look for a motion to receive and file the planning, zoning, and administrative activity report.
I have one more edit on this.
Oh, sorry, I apologize.
That's okay. General planning and zoning, Bertha Voss School is incorrectly identified. It is the International School at Bertha Voss is the technical real name of the school.
Okay, then,
And Voss is with one S.
1S.
but while we're at it, I want to amend that. We had some issues with the structure, and so that did not get issued.
Okay, so that, okay.
It'll come back on next month.
Technically, yeah, we don't have to do anything to this document because we're receiving and filing it. We just want to note these
Just make a
things.
note.
So we'll note in the minute that we made these comments and then we'll look for that to be changed on the next one. Okay. Are there any other comments on the administrative report? Because at this time, I would look for a motion to receive and file that. We need a second.
Second.
We have one. Okay, all in favor of receiving and filing the planning, zoning, and administrative update, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Okay, quick, I will, should I read this in? From Tim Hart, the correspondence that we added, Tim Hart wrote the planning commission, "Hi, my name is Tim Hart. I'm building a new home on Deepwater Point. I would a garage with a 14-foot door so I can,"
Okay, one. I think you did have a phone too.
okay, yeah, there's some weird, so I can store my boat in it. Your current restriction will not allow that. I've been told you are considering changing your restriction. I think that would be a good idea. Please let me know if you make any changes to your restrictions. Thank you, Tim Hart. We also received from Mark, can someone say his last name? Ponatoski. Regarding accessory buildings, he has indicated some math about the size of an acre and the maximum lot coverage would allow you to have a certain amount of square footage. And he said that it is very hard to believe that it makes sense to any resident of Acme Township that in order to be able to use a full 20% of my 1 acre, I could build roughly 10 to 12 separate 560 square foot buildings. If the ordinance allows 20% coverage, then that is exactly what should be allowed regardless if it is attached or detached. And the same rationale should be applied to the height maximum. So that was the correspondence. At this time, we're going to move on to public hearings, starting with ordinance number 028. Are you going to make me say the article? Article 19, right? Shouldn't it be XIX then?
Yeah.
Medical marijuana moratorium?
Yeah, XIX, yeah. If it's-
It ends up so.
Can we just put 19? Seems easy. Okay, do we need to reference anything before we open the public hearing, or are we just gonna?
You can open it. I have some comments when you start addressing it.
Okay, when we get to it under new business. Also procedurally, we're gonna have both public hearings, and then we're gonna go into discussion once we get to new business. Is that correct? So that we follow the agenda. Okay, at 7:20, we'll open it for public hearing on the medical marijuana or marijuana moratorium. No? Okay. If you have any comments on the moratorium, please come to the podium, state your name, and we would ask that it be limited to 3 minutes. Okay. No? Sure, okay. We're gonna go ahead and close that public hearing on the moratorium. And we're going to move on to ordinance 29, article 6, section 6.6.1, US 31 M72 business and mixed use district. We're also not, we don't have anything, we're just gonna open the public hearing. Okay, at this time, we're gonna open the public hearing. Pretty much the same, I should have killed like a minute, so these weren't all open at the same time.
We're calling it 7:21.
Okay, at this time, if you have any comments on the business and mixed use district, please come to the podium, state your name and address. We ask that comments be limited to 3 minutes, and yep.
Good evening, Brian Kelly, 4893 Ridgecrest. I come to speak to you tonight concerning the Acme Township Ordinance 029. Many people have worked very hard on the changes to that ordinance, and your efforts are greatly appreciated. I know this has gone on for a long while. What I take exception to in this process is the lack of availability of the actual document in advance of the meeting and public comment opportunity. That document, in its more mature, completed form, was only made available to the public today. I tried to get the meeting packet on Friday, and technical issues with the website precluded obtaining the document. In reviewing the meeting minutes from the January 13th planning meeting, I noticed that the actual document was available at that time. My question is, why wasn't it made available on the Acme website? Instead, we get the new ordinance, and it's buried in the meeting packet on the day of the meeting. And I don't really see how the public can adequately digest those changes in the few hours that they would have prior to the meeting. There's a lot of new detail in this document that were not available in the previous versions of the document, which I diligently looked at when they were made available online. The township makes the effort to hold meetings with special interest groups to solicit their requirements and wishes for a new ordinance, and yet when it comes to sharing the results of those meetings and the documents taxpayers pay to create, the township falls short. Acme Town taxpayers should not need to make special requests to obtain those documents. I shouldn't have to call, shouldn't have to email. So the question is, what will it take to start making those documents available to the public on a more timely basis on our website? This document does not exist on the website except buried within the meeting packet. We now have a new website paid for by the taxpayers with a section for the Planning Commission. Why isn't this document there? It wasn't there today at 3 o'clock. I don't believe it's there right now. The same general concerns can be applied to other documents being presented at tonight's meeting, the agricultural ordinance, and, oh, what was the other one? Doesn't matter. Oh, I'm sorry, the supplemental height ordinance, that's a very brief one, but I still think it should probably be up there in final form as soon as it's practically available. As a township, we should have a strong bias for sharing these documents as soon as possible, so when they come out in draft form at some point, they should be put on the website. And also, the previous versions of the documents should stick around on the website, so if somebody wants to go back and see how they compare, that would also be very useful. So my question is how we can improve this process in the future and make this a little more available for those of us who do take the time to want to read. Thank you.
Okay.
That way. Yeah.
Are there any other comments at this time regarding the business and mixed-use district? Okay, hearing none, we'll close that public hearing at 7:25. 24.5, 25. Okay, so we'll now go to the new business. We'll come back to the medical marijuana first. And I believe you have some comments for us?
Yeah. So last meeting, we were talking about the new legislation the House had passed. It was in the Senate committee. And Nikki had said that there were some inquiries about opening dispensaries in the township. Now, have there been any others since the last meeting?
None.
Yeah, okay, so we talked about it, you all kind of kicked around the idea of whether you would want an ordinance or not. I said, if you think you might, let's bring it to public hearing because it takes a while to get it through the process so that, if you decided you wanted to this month, we weren't a month behind. Since last month, a couple of things have happened. One, the Free Press reported that Senate Majority Leader Randy Richardville has said he's not a fan of the bills, and he said he's going to sit on them for a while. I'm reading, quote, "We don't want this ballot initiative to take over. I believe the vast majority of people who voted for it believe we're talking about prescription tech marijuana." He has indicated that he's not going to move these very fast at all, and the article says maybe they won't ever come out of committee because of the budget and then elections in the fall. So I wanted to let you know that perhaps there's not as significant of a rush as there was perceived to be a month ago. I think part of the perceived rush was the folks who are inclined to open dispensaries were aware of this because they're very aware of all of the things because they have lots of websites and blogs, and they were kind of jumping the gun, presuming this was going to go through really fast since it went through the House really fast. Apparently it's not. I don't know whether it will. Who knows? Next month maybe someone somehow manages to leverage it out and it moves through and it's on the governor's desk next month. I wanted you to know, though, that according to this article, that it's not as moving as fast as it would otherwise be. What that means is, Acme Township currently allows dispensaries to a certain extent. They are limited, by what we talked about last month, 1,000-foot radius, and from, other dispensaries and schools, etc., and a couple of other things. But they're not really, no one really is opening them because of the fairly understood decision that they're not really allowed under the law. The sheriff was cracking down on them. There's still one here. I don't know exactly how he operates or what he actually sells there, but he's still operating in some sense. But the sheriff cracked down on all the other guys that were operating. So I know that doesn't give you, a specific answer, but it gives you information so you can make a decision on whether to move forward with a moratorium. I think part of what we can, if you wanted to move forward on a moratorium, what we know now is if this bill in its current state were to be approved or be passed and signed by the governor, it would affirmatively allow dispensaries, would also allow townships to
zone for dispensaries, regulated dispensaries. You already have that in place, so if you were comfortable with what you have now, then we could leave it. If you weren't, which is kind of what it sounded like maybe last month, then we can still entertain the opportunity of, you know, amending the ordinance as it stands. You don't need a moratorium right now, but again, who knows what would happen in a month if it gets somehow moved through and passed. So I'm trying to give you information so you can make an educated decision. I don't have a,
Moratorium only lasts for 180 days.
yeah, from the time of approval, so it would be after
The board meeting.
the board meeting, which would probably be the, could very easily be the April board meeting. By the time it get, if you've recommended approval now, it's gotta go to county planning,
Oh,
and then
right.
it's gotta come back, then it will come before the township board, so it, I don't know the
It's
timing
on-
right now where we are, but I don't know they could get to the,
I think it's
board
on
for
the
next month.
February 18th County Planning Commission agenda right now.
oh, is it? Oh, so you
Yeah.
could, if you
I
wanted.
need to call them tomorrow.
And tell them,
Tell them,
okay.
there it is.
Yeah.
Because I
So
looked
you
at the
could get it
agenda
to,
today for
okay,
that, and it was on there.
yeah, so it could get to the,
Presumably, that we would, so it could make it to the March
yeah,
board, it'd be
Yep.
tight, but it could get in the packet for the, yeah, timing wise. Questions?
One of the other things we discussed that day was that with the changes to the shoreline and the 1,000 feet that's already in there, we were going to look into how many actually could be built in, if, whether it was even gonna be an issue. And, I guess I would ask if that got completed. I didn't get to it myself.
We haven't worked on this, I think, because we were waiting to see what happened, right? I think that what we would most likely look to do is if we wanted to take this moratorium to look at the ordinance, we would put it on the agenda for next month for us to look
Right.
at some materials from staff, right? So if we wanna do that, then I think we could do it with or without a moratorium, actually.
yeah, because there's no change in the law right now. And it doesn't appear that it's gonna be, you know, in the very near future at least, so.
Does anybody have questions? Strong motivation either way?
My only concern was when we talked about the one that used to be across from the park, now it looks like it's an antique shop, and they were asking about reopening it as a dispensary. Because the antique shops in there, are they grandfathered in, or no? And we would have to look at giving them,
Well, I don't think they would be a non-conforming use.
I don't,
There's a, you know, you don't, how do I put this? Technically, if they were still operating as a dispensary, but just didn't say dispensary on the sign, which is all I really know. All I really know is that says antique store, or whatever they call it now. I don't know for certain that they haven't been operating as a dispensary from then, you know, for this entire time. So technically, even though they would have been flying under the radar, you could make an argument that they were still non-conforming. If they haven't been operating, there's a very good argument that they abandoned that use because they were basically forced to, because the sheriff came in. I understand the sheriff came and removed their files and things like that. Maybe their supply, I don't know.
files, I was
I don't know. So, if we got to that's going to require some more understanding of what's going on over there and some really careful work. So I don't think they would be non-conforming is my short answer, but I wouldn't be an absolute certainty right now. I think they abandoned their uses. Everything I know tells me they abandoned their use, but
Well,
I'm not certain.
if you were gonna try to keep operating as a dispensary, don't you think you would put up something that wouldn't invite a whole bunch of strangers driving by in? Like an
Yeah.
antique shop?
Yeah, I don't know, they're non-conformance and the continuation of non-conformance is a very fact-intensive question, so.
wouldn't that go into the, I mean, if you put out whatever, that you're, well, they got it as an antique store, and they, oh, well, we're gonna be selling marijuana, well, you can't just flip-flop, or, well, we've been selling it all along, well, no, you weren't. You were
Yeah.
an antique store, that's like saying, a guy across the street here, he's got a car sales place, but he's not, no, I'm not selling cars, I'm selling cars with marijuana in it, so it's a marijuana shop.
All right,
I don't
someone
think
just
you
walked.
can't, you couldn't say it's a marijuana shop, so wouldn't that still fall under that? If somebody wants to put one in, 1,000 feet,
I have a really easy
Maybe.
way to solve this. Someone walk in there tomorrow and ask for some pot and
Yeah.
see what happens.
I would recommend you have your card if you're gonna do that.
Right.
I would second that.
If anyone has a card. But these are all what ifs. Basically, we have to decide if we
Yeah,
want to
we-
look at it. I think it would probably be worth looking at just, given all of our new parkland, like where does that leave them? Whether we do that with a moratorium or not is, I would look to any of you with a strong,
I guess I don't see any reason to put a moratorium on it, and we can look at it.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, you definitely can look at it and follow through, but
The
I don't see a
moratorium.
need for the moratorium.
What, why don't we do this? Why don't you, you've had a public hearing on this, you could table this, the moratorium discussion tonight and agree to discuss
no
it again
action.
next month, the moratorium.
okay.
And then, you know, if something here changes in a month, then we know, and in the meantime, you can ask staff to start putting together information on the current ordinance and where it's going, so you kind of have a two-track thing, and you still have the moratorium in your back pocket. You can do it, I think you can do it for a month. You
Okay.
couldn't just continue to table it in perpetuity.
Okay.
You'd have to have another public hearing, but
That's
I think you could
fine.
table it for a month.
Tabling or something, we call
Would you
it.
Yeah.
table it, or would
We-
you continue it?
We'll just take
It's
no
only for one.
action. We don't need to continue the public hearing. The public
Right.
hearing is closed.
Postpone the consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah, at this time, we're not ready to take action. How about that?
Wouldn't be the
And I
first
think
time.
if we could get a little,
You took more than a month to consider an ordinance.
what are you trying to say?
No.
Okay, so we'll keep this on the agenda for next month, and with that, it'll be old business, and maybe we could get some staff opinion of some sort, or even just a map to see where could they even end up now with that 1,000 feet from Parkland. I mean, that's most of the business district,
Mhm.
I would think, a good portion of it. Huh,
Well, then we're not getting any more calls, inquiries regarding it.
yes,
It kind of died down.
okay.
I want to give you one more update, and most of you weren't around, but when we were considering it before, there was a faction that said we should ban it altogether, and there were communities that were doing that, and the Supreme Court, that's why I had this case in front of me. The Michigan Supreme Court issued a decision on the 6th concerning whether you could ban outright, and people were doing it by saying nothing that's prohibited by federal law is allowed in the municipality. In this case, it was the city of Wyoming. And the Michigan Supreme Court said that, no, you can't do that. The Medical Marijuana Act prohibits you from banning it in that fashion because you are preempted by state law. So state law can preempt local law, and then that's what the Supreme Court said. It also, as an aside, they based that on the federal law, and they said the federal law does not preempt, Federal Controlled Substances Act does not preempt the Medical Marijuana Act, but the Medical Marijuana Act preempts prohibition by the locals.
It seems very convenient.
Well, frankly, it was a unanimous decision, and somewhat unexpected by those of us who are, who follow the Supremes. We kind of anticipated them finding that the federal law would preempt, but they didn't. So,
That's great information. Let's talk more about this next month.
yeah, I brought it, so I
No,
wouldn't want to forget
that's
about
great.
talking about it. We can talk about it.
Do you have Google alerts on marijuana in Michigan?
No, I get all of the cases that are decided, so that just happens to be one of them.
People might question that. Okay, we're gonna move on to discussing the, formerly we called it the form-based code district, but it's the
Oh, yeah, why don't you make a motion to postpone consideration of the
We need a full-on
moratorium
motion. Okay,
until next month, yeah, otherwise it could die.
I make a motion to postpone the moratorium, the medical marijuana moratorium
Until next month.
until
Easy.
next month.
okay. And we'll have that on the agenda. Do I have a second?
I'll
Support.
say, oh, Rosa, thank you.
Mixing it up. Finch got into first place there.
I was slacking.
All right, all in favor of postponing the medical marijuana moratorium until next month's planning commission meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Now we're gonna move on to the US 31 M72 Business and Mixed Use District. Just as a note to everyone, we changed it from form-based code, even though it is in practice form-based code. We were finding that form-based code maybe had some negative connotations, specifically related to architectural design standards. And whereas our code doesn't focus on that or really have much reference to that, other than some window facade notes, but it's not an architectural design standard like some form-based codes have. So we decided to just change the name of the ordinance so that it was maybe a little more
User-friendly.
user-friendly. Thank you.
For the commercial business.
Yes, yeah. Maybe didn't make people presume things.
We're planning just the commercial district.
No, it's the business and mixed-use district. Does anybody have any comment regarding that at this time? I think what we would look to do now that we've had a public hearing is to send it to county planning. Yep, we tried to send this to county planning without having had the public hearing to get comment on it. County planning said, no, we're not gonna look at it until you guys have a public hearing. So we scheduled it for public hearing, had this public hearing today. We're interested to see what we hear back from county. And so, yeah, did you, was that
So, just so for my reference, they did agree to consider it without a recommendation of approval. Is that right?
I thought it was they just wanted the public hearing.
From this body, they agreed to hear it after public hearing, but even though this body hadn't recommended it for approval to the township board yet?
Yes, that's correct.
But they wanted the public hearing.
Yes. Exactly.
So really, at this point, today, we would look to maybe do the same thing we did last month, now having had the public hearing, right?
My recommendation would be that you make a motion to refer to the county planning for their review and comment. And that'll take them at least a month to do that.
Okay.
Okay? They'll send back, they usually send back a letter with their comments or a letter acknowledging they don't have any comments. Then at that point in time, the planning commission can make a final decision on recommending approval to the township board.
And that is also in their packet for next week. No, end of this week, right? Thursday?
I think it's next Tuesday.
Oh. Anyway, county planning meets very soon, and this ordinance is in there. So,
Unless I pull it from.
Recommendation to send this on
what?
to county planning?
Yes, that's what we would look for at this time. And then it would come back to us in March, and we could look at the comments from them. So they might have some more insight for us, which is, with something a little different like this, we definitely welcome. And then we can make a move on it if we want to send it on to the board.
I make that recommendation. Send ordinance 029 on the county planning.
Is that a motion?
That's what I
Okay.
said.
Well, you recommended.
No,
Okay,
I'll second the motion.
thank you. We have a second from
That's good.
Okay, is there any other discussion at this time? Are we all comfortable with the process here? It's a little out of normal
So
sequence.
what's the formal name? Is it the US 31 M72 Business District, or is it Business and Mixed Use District? Is there distinguish between the two, or it doesn't matter? That's all.
Oh, because the notice.
Yeah.
would happen with that?
How did Nikki notice it?
Business district.
Yeah, it's the same as one we got right here. Mixed use just appears
That's where I
on
took
the
it from.
agenda.
Okay,
It's,
that's
Okay.
all.
yeah, it's, we're good.
Okay.
We're good.
All in favor of recommending, passing the US 31 and 72 business, district ordinance onto county planning, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. That one was really hard for me to get out. Motion carries. Okay, we're on to Great Lakes Trim Building Addition Site Plan Review. I think that to kick this off, do we want to talk about, Nikki, what you brought up earlier? For the meeting? How do we want to do this?
Earlier today, Jeff had brought up that this possibly had an SUP attached to it. Going back, I had to look in the computer to 2001, and then there was an amendment in 2004. And yes, it had a special use permit attached to it that I was unaware of. However, in 2004, they did an amendment to it. This is an amendment, or could fall under the standards in our ordinance, an amendment, and under the modifications and amendments to an SUP. So I think the way that you would approve it tonight, instead of just site plan review, would be approval of a special use permit amendment.
Do we have the SUP number?
Yeah, I have them both right here. That would be, the original is 2001-16P, and then the amendment also that I was 2004-9P.
Okay.
And they, what's it called? 1 second here. Under amendments and modifications, B, the planning commission may permit minor modifications and special use permits if the resulting use will still meet all applicable standards and requirements of this ordinance. The planning commission may decide minor modifications without a formal application, public hearing, or payment of an additional fee. For purposes of this section, minor amendments or modifications are those the zoning administrator determines have no substantial impact on neighboring properties, the general public, or those intended to occupy or use the proposed developments.
How does, okay, so how does this change procedurally what we're doing?
Procedurally, you're gonna have two issues going on. First, you're gonna make a motion to, after you hear the presentation from the applicant, you'd make a motion to approve the minor amendment to SUP 2001-16-16P and 2004-9P. Make a minor amendment to those for the record. And then you would make a motion, subject to any conditions, review of whatever your review and comments are regarding the site plan for the addition and the modifications they're making to the site. So actually, you'll have two different issues here to go over. But you can do them all at the same time.
Okay. I believe you're the applicant.
Yes, we are.
I'm Carly.
Hi, can you get up?
Yeah.
My name's Jeremy Dixon, I'm with FED Corporation representing Tom, Jeff Crandall, the owners, Great Lakes Trim. We're looking at doing a 20 by 120 addition, 2,400 square feet, just to improve the product flow on the shop floor and a little bit of additional storage.
Exciting. I believe that we have had a review by our planner, Mr. Angeli. Which, did you receive this back from?
I did.
Okay. So should we start with your?
We can go through the review. I did talk to Jeremy, and he wanted to know if he needed to make revisions to his site plan. I told him to hold off until this evening to determine what conditions. I said the planning commission could approve the site plan with conditions, and then that way he could make the revisions, so he's just saving us some time.
Okay.
So, we only noted a couple of things that we can discuss with the applicant here, maybe we can shed some light on. The first one is that we noted that it appears that part of the loading and unloading zone is in the front yard setback. Okay. And if that's an issue, that's going to either have to be redesigned or they're going to have to request a variance before the zoning board of appeals. That's their decision on how they want to handle that. One of the maneuvering lane for parking is 20 feet, and the requirement's not met. It says the lane appears to encroach into the bollards located on the concrete apron. That's the maneuvering lane behind the, that's the area. The maneuvering lane is fairly, needs to be 20, there needs to be 20 feet between the parking space and the concrete apron in here. So there's that doesn't meet the code. Okay, you need space to back out, pull in, and more importantly, back out of the parking space. So that's that's one of the requirements. The other one is that the ordinance specifies that for every 5 parking spaces, you need to have a tree island. Okay, I mean, that's just in the code, we have to point it out. So I mean, for every 5 spaces, so you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you got 10 spaces. Technically, you'd need to have 2 tree islands. So planning commission is going to have to make a determination on that. The site is tight. I don't know if they can actually do it or not. There's an existing loading and unloading in the front yard. The area around it appears to be 20 feet by 50. Again, it needs to be clearly marked with make a determination if it is encroaching on the front yard setback. The other part of this is there was some discussion on the lighting. I think that's been resolved. The wall packs have need to be relocated. I think that's mainly just a detailed issue. One of the other things that we noticed that's kind of interesting is that if you look on the site plan, currently the maneuvering lane right now is 20 feet, or existing is 20 feet off of South Railway Commons. So the driveway going in now is 20 feet. They're going to expand it by another 25, so we need a 45-foot wide driveway, which we thought was kind of excessive for the size of driveway. They may want to weigh in and tell us why they need a driveway that large. And that's pretty much it. It's a fairly clean site plan. There was just some technicalities based on the ordinance that they didn't meet. So I told the applicant, if Jeremy called me up and said, come to the planning commission meeting, talk to the planning commission and see how they want to treat them. So.
Yeah, I was still digesting.
Well, I have a question about the tree islands. I'm wondering if we can easily forego that, like if they agree to plant however many number of trees they're supposed to be in an island, someplace else on the property, if we can use that the same. Is there enough room on the property to plant anything anyplace else?
They put birch trees on in 2001, and they're huge now. So if you came out there, you would barely see the plant because there's so many trees now. We did talk about, we actually considering, because of the parking lot issue, could we move some of the trees? And elders were saying, oh, those are pretty big trees. So We can move some trees around, so we can, it's just not, we are definitely utilizing the whole corner lot.
I have a question. What, so is it parking right now, where you're putting the addition, what is it right now?
It's just the side of the building, we really don't park against it because of the ice fall.
Oh. Okay.
It's a sheet metal roof and it just, yeah.
Is the parking that's on there right now, that's where you currently are parking cars along that
Yes.
north edge?
Yeah.
That's the north edge?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're just moving the wall out 20 feet and that's what's creating that turning
Yeah.
parking lot situation?
And that's enough spaces for what you're going on? Okay.
I have a fundamental question. What's a tree island?
Tree island is the, you know where you go into a parking lot and there's an island, there's a concrete or an island that's cut out like at the end of the parking aisle and they have a tree planted in it? That would be a tree island.
Like sometimes they're in the
Kmart.
middle
Like-
too,
like
you have a long
Kmart,
row of parking
Tom's,
spots.
You know,
You know, like 5
Okay.
spots and then a tree island,
There's
and
little-
then another 5
Mm-hmm.
spots
Tree
and a
island.
tree
Yeah.
island.
they take, it's basically the same dimension of a parking space, but they use it for landscaping, they put a
Okay.
tree in it.
Put concrete
Okay.
around them, people try to ram their carts up on
Yeah, it's
them.
like where 2 cars can park, but it's
You know what I'm
filled with
talking
dirt
about? Yeah,
and- filled with dirt and there's something growing there.
yeah,
That's a tree island.
That's a tree
okay.
island.
yes.
Isn't it to direct the flow of traffic in some instances?
It's a direct flow of traffic, and then the other part of it is, I don't know if the ordinance here addresses it, but in some other communities, it's to cut down the amount of heat that's generated off the asphalt in summertime. That's why a lot of communities are requiring them basically to reduce the amount of ambient heat that's generated off the asphalt. But on this site here, it's small, and they do have existing landscaping around the parking lot, not in the parking lot. Personally, I wouldn't get too hung up on it. We just have to point it out because it's in the ordinance. I'm asking the attorney if it's something that the planning commission has discretion on, or if it needs to have a variance before the zoning board.
Oh, before the ZBA.
Yeah.
Do we have any, it looks like the site is pretty full of impervious surface by this point.
Mhm.
I'm trying to remember, do we have a maximum lot coverage in business?
The lot coverage is for the,
I guess it wouldn't matter because it's covered already anyway.
It's already existing.
Yeah, okay. Anyway. Just
minimum
wondering.
percent of lot, there is no minimum standards on the D4.
Okay.
Maximum lot area covered by all structures and parking in D4, there are no maximum standards.
Other questions?
The added width that you wanted on your drives entrance, is that just basically so you can back your semi up in there?
Yeah, currently we back the semi-regularly back there now, but as you can see the next item here, well, actually we have a compactor on the side of the building here. We're gonna move the compactor up to the front. So that compactor will have to be, you have to back straight into that to take it off and put a new one in there. You know, that would be emptied out, so that would help us with that. The truck right now, when it's sitting in the dock, you can still drive through. So because we're adding this and putting the compactor up front, that's one of the reasons we added this.
You're not moving that loading zone over, you're
No.
just adding another one. Because if I remember right, when you came the last time here for, I don't know whether it's an addition or what, but there was a lot of discussion on that big part of it.
It was the loading, it was the
There
loading
was a
dock.
loading dock there,
A
and
few
then,
years ago.
That was probably
Was
2
it-
years ago.
yeah, I can't remember how long
Was
ago
it
it
the
was.
2004?
Subsequent.
2004 was for plant 1, that was the building we had across the street.
Oh, okay.
So this one was then 2,
So there's-
probably 8
There's another one out there somewhere.
Yeah,
We just don't know where.
'cause
Okay.
there was some discussion on that, and aren't you right next to Margie Roofing?
They would be straight east from us.
Okay,
They're like progress right there.
okay. So that's the reason why you need the wider curb
Wider,
cut.
yeah.
Is just so that
Makes it
people can
easy.
still drive in and out, even those.
We're still loading our loading.
And then, am I seeing another loading door that's going to face to the north? Or no?
That door currently, sorry, Jim.
No, that's right.
That door currently is right here,
Mhm.
so we're just moving it to here.
Okay, and
That just is an extra door if we need to move equipment in and out, but we really don't use it.
okay, it's not
It's
for a semi loading,
No,
it's just to
no,
move the
that's just if we
forklift
need to
in.
move stuff in and out
Mhm.
for whatever reason, but just an extra.
If you have that, the maneuvering lane, if that's too, narrow, I mean, could you drive like a full-size truck and park it in there and then back it out? With the 20,
And what parking?
yeah, well, I don't remember what the two numbers were. The maneuvering lane requirements are not met, so with that parking, it's 20, not 25, John? What were you saying?
It's 20,
And it should be?
20 feet for a maneuvering lane.
And what is it right now?
They don't have a engineer scale on it.
16, about 15. Here's a 20 from here to there, and that's
Okay.
what you need from here to there. So you're short the width of that, the width of the concrete wall.
Is that what this is concrete wall? Oh, yeah, concrete apron.
Yeah, the apron that goes around here, you're short that width, so you're down about 16 or 15 feet. Kind of what that width is, 5 foot by 4, so you're 16 feet, 12 feet short.
This dimension here is 20 feet.
No, 5 foot, you say you're 5 foot short.
So we need 25 feet back in, or
You need
feet?
20, but on here it shows the concrete apron. So is that,
That's
That's
just
not the
the
building,
pad.
that's just the pad, that's,
It's to
Flat.
patch in, because we gotta cut the asphalt, and the footings are gonna be outside of the building.
So that's actually underneath ground level.
Right.
It's flush with the top of
There's
the
not-
asphalt.
So it's not sideways, just the apron flush with the parking.
Yep.
So
correct,
so you can,
if you go right to the building, you're pretty close to 20 feet.
correct.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at that.
okay.
And I just have one question on your retention pond calculations. From your previous to your new, it's a little kind of a different format. Did you factor in the new addition square footage? Because it didn't look like it was, it just says, new impervious surface, which to me is asphalt.
Yeah, I'll have to check with the architect on that.
Okay.
And we're gonna have the storm reviewed by the township engineer.
So we'll be reviewing, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're, at this point, does anybody have any other specific questions? I think we can go back to the document that Jen and I provided for us. First of all, I would say that we might be in agreement that since that concrete apron is flush, that the maneuvering lane requirement would be met then, right? We'd be right
If it's
at, right
flush, yeah,
at 20 feet.
It'll be right at the edge of the
Right?
building.
Okay. The land use and zoning of adjacent parcels should be noted on the site plan. That's pretty easy and straightforward. They're all B4. So that seems to be satisfied. Is anybody concerned with that being noted? Okay. Part of what appears to be the loading and unloading zone is in the front yard setback. I don't think we've gotten to this yet.
And that's an existing too, so we're talking about right there.
I think we're talking about right here.
No.
The front setback is right here. You're talking about the existing part of the loading dock, or?
Or are we talking, I guess I thought we were talking about.
No, that's past the setback, that's the front yard setback.
So
Could you
that
clarify?
would be,
Is it the existing loading dock?
So it's an existing condition.
it's an existing deal, so
So, and it was already discussed when it was put in originally and it was deemed necessary.
I didn't have the paperwork to take a look at what the SUP requirements were approved last time. So it may have, Doug, you may be right, it may have been already approved.
I remember it being discussed and going back and forth on it, and if memory serves me correct, sometimes I have trouble remembering yesterday, let alone 10 years ago, but with the business, the vehicular travel that was going down that road, we ended up deciding that it should be all right, and it's fine. I mean, and we're not asking him, or he's not asking to put in anything longer, so, or bigger on that, so I don't see where that would change anything as far as the addition he's asking on the building.
Okay.
At least that's my opinion on it.
Does anybody else have any objections to this condition? Are we satisfied knowing that it's existing? Okay. The parking area does not have any tree islands. Jeff, take it away. Does it need to go to ZBA?
Well, so, you know, as a beginning point, the planning commission doesn't have authority to vary the zoning ordinance. The planning commission reviews the project. If it fits within the ordinance, approval is made. If it doesn't fit, approval is denied. Or the request is denied. That's how it works. So planning commission doesn't have authority to vary this particular part of the ordinance, unless it's included in a specific part of the ordinance. This specific part of the ordinance says on page 76, it's whatever it is, 7.5.4 C sub 3 treed islands. 3C says for off-street parking areas containing fewer than 20 parking spaces and located beyond 500 feet from a public right-of-way. I'm not sure if that would be 500 feet. But, the zoning board of appeals may waive the requirement of treed islands. In order to be eligible for the waiver, all required landscaping and plantings which would otherwise occupy the treed islands shall be located elsewhere on the project site. In deciding whether to grant the waiver, the zoning board of appeals shall employ Section 7.56A as a standard, as well as consider whether off-street parking areas and outdoor storage will be screened from views of neighboring property owners or from public right-of-way. So the ordinance expressly says that the ZBA has the authority to look at that, and the planning commission does not have authority to waive that treed island requirement.
My question though is, with some of these other things, we're looking at them as existing, and if we're just looking at the amendment as the addition, and the parking already exists.
Well, you know what, I would like to see the previous approval and see how all these issues were dealt with, frankly, because they may have been dealt with before when this one was approved, but I mean, I recall being here too, because I recall this as an issue. There was a big question, how do trucks back in here? They're gonna have to back in off the road. Remember that, right?
Yeah.
That was an issue too. I mean, I remember, but I don't have enough memory to remember exactly what happened. But so I mean,
Yeah,
it may,
I'm like you, I can remember it being discussed a
So,
lot,
But not the details.
and then ended up, we approving it. Basically, if my memory serves me correctly, which it could be wrong, that's more of a service road. I don't believe, is that actually,
it comes out.
here's my question to Tom.
Sure.
Is that plowed by the county, or do you guys have that
We
plowed?
pay for it.
You
It's a
pay
private-
for
It's a
it.
private road.
So, in ways, if I remember right, we said that's a private road anyway.
Down there, they're
Yeah,
two
that's right, I
cul-de-sacs,
recall that.
they're not through traffic.
Mhm.
You come in, turn around, and go out.
Right, and
Really
it,
don't. I know the issue originally was that we couldn't have loading docks facing the road,
right,
but the way the lots are set up, there was no way to bring a tractor trailer around.
you couldn't bring
You
the
couldn't
tractor
turn it.
trailer around,
Yeah.
and
So
maybe that's where I'm thinking of Margie
Yeah.
Roofing, because you'd have to gone out on them.
They were using their property, yeah.
Yep,
We switched that around, so we would have to be on their property.
And as far as the parking, it looks like it's existing, except for you're adding a turnaround on one side, and you're losing 3 spots on the other, the rest is already there.
Right, correct.
So, I would
So I,
think I'd leave the
Okay.
council as to what we're supposed to do.
well,
but
we've got
if
a
it-
couple different special use permits here, but I don't even know if they're for the same property or not. Because on one of them here, one of them is from parcel 5850 004-00, and that's not this one. One of the SUP says that the parking will meet all of the requirements of the Acme Township zoning ordinance, and that was signed by Tom and signed by Sharon at the time, who was the office and planning coordinator. So we got one SUP, it says it's gotta meet all the requirements, but I don't know if this one, you have two different buildings?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so I don't know, I have to go.
And what was our current parking ordinance at that time? This gets back into it's when it was approved.
We don't have any
You know-
items yet. It's- Somehow we were able to forego that.
And it says it on this SUP too, that it meets all the requirements. I think what Jeff is saying is that you're expanding the building, which means technically you're expanding the parking. Okay, so you need additional parking spaces because you're expanding the size of the building. The ordinance requires basically one tree island for every 5 parking spaces. That can be waived by the zoning board of appeals if the applicant provides equal landscaping somewhere else on the site. So Tom would have to find a location on his property for 2 trees. And then go to the zoning board of appeals, and then they would waive that requirement based on the site construction. That's how I would see it go. I think the other part of this is that we need to make sure what the other approved SUPs are for this particular piece of property to see what's on record, which we don't have. We have to find those.
Okay.
Yeah, before they go through the trouble of getting variance, I think it makes sense
To review
to
that.
see what was approved in 2008. Yeah,
What-
somewhere around there.
What's your construction timeframe?
We would,
This spring?
yeah,
So you could wait until the next meeting in March to get all this get this all cleaned up?
yeah, I mean, it's 8 weeks to order steel, so we've
Okay.
got some time. We just don't want to order the steel. until
Maybe
it's approved.
I'd recommend to
Make
the
sure.
planning commission that we postpone this for 1 month and then let us go into all the records and kind of piece what SUP goes with this property
Okay.
to find out what requirements were previously approved.
While I have us all together, can I go through the last couple items
Yeah.
on this list though?
Yeah.
Knowing that we want to check the SUPs and see if there's things that are lost in translation here. And then, okay, you said site lighting, that was taken care of, you have a site,
I think Jeremy sent something over on some site lighting on the wall packs you guys were gonna use.
Yeah.
They just have to note it on the elevations where they're gonna put it.
okay. And so that's,
That's a
Not really
technicality.
meeting our-
Yeah.
okay. Additional loading and unloading information is required, do you have that note on here?
I was gonna ask them, they using just the same loading dock, no additional loading facilities?
Correct.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, and then we're gonna go back up to the beginning. The plan shows an ingress and egress into that facility that appears to be excessive.
We talked about the 45.
We talked about that, okay. I have a comment on that. I guess it's maybe different that it's a private road, but we tend to try to keep curb cuts minimal and not. Is there any way like the cut could be narrower and kind of swoop in so that the actual road cut is not, I mean, that's just like,
We can look at that, absolutely.
I'm just-
I'm just taking a recommendation, Jeremy wasn't there, but I had Elmer's over there. So I kind of took their recommendation of how wide you guys think we could go. And that's what they came up with, but I'm sure there's, if we need to try to minimize and make it a little smaller, then I'm sure we can work,
cause I mean, that's a lot more pavement to something that's already not a lot of green space going on anyway. That's my opinion. with that. But it's hard to visualize. I need like Tonka trucks, kind of roll around on
To
the
scale.
side. Yeah, can we get some scale Tonka trucks?
No, they actually, if it's done in AutoCAD, I don't know, you guys have AutoTrack, you guys have tracking software? They could map on there with the,
With the trucks.
what the
I
trucks
just-
would do.
Yeah.
I just wonder if the curb cut could be a little smaller and preserve a little bit more green space, because it does look like, are you taking out any of the
Well,
trees?
we're-
You're
we're-
taking out one tree,
We're add-
right?
I mean, but we're adding more, I mean, this is cutting into our existing, this will all be green,
okay.
so we're really maintaining the same
Okay.
amount of green.
You have to forgive me, I'm not an
That's okay.
engineer, this
We're
guy
just-
is.
Because by requirement, we have to have so much
Okay,
drainage. and
Yeah.
It'll all be grass and green and
we like on-site drainage and great plans for that, so, awesome.
it's fine.
Does anyone else have questions about that? I just wanted a little clarification. Sheet C1 identifies 3 side yard setbacks, no rear setbacks. That's pretty easy, right?
That's
just-
easy for them,
You're
yep.
done with that, okay. This is a use authorized by special use permit, which we found out why that was a question. It's because it was authorized by special use permit. So we'll get to work on finding those. Does anyone else have any comments on this SUP amendment, right, is what?
SUP amendment and site plan approval, yep.
So we would most likely see it on the agenda next month, but under the different titles, so don't get confused. Questions, comments, concerns?
I just got a question.
Yeah.
Do I see this correctly, there's no parking right in front of the office part of your building?
That's correct.
That's all landscape there, so your parking is around the corner?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good
It's-
exercise
it's-
program.
Because it's a corner lot, it's really kind of, even, you know, this whole wall right here is like, kind of, I want to call it seawall, but a barrier. It's really strange how this elevation is on this lot. This is all a ditch in front of the office. We couldn't put any parking spots there because you had the drainage.
Does anybody ever use the front door?
No, we don't use that office. Just storage.
Any other questions? What do you guys make trim for?
Automotive, so we make seat back panels and door panels and armrests. We're a tier 2 supplier.
I didn't know, you could trim a lot of stuff, so.
You guys are always, anybody's more than welcome to come over and see the place.
Interesting. I
Welcome
like to
back.
learn what we have here. All right, do you have any other questions for us? I think you're just gonna work
So,
with John at this point.
My recommendation would be, we're gonna, for you guys, we're gonna research the SUPs to find out which ones are applicable and resolve the issues. And then, because we're gonna have a month delay, then we can get the site plan revised with some of the notes on it, and then I think we're good to go.
Okay.
Okay, so,
Excuse me, so from us, you know, realistically, we were hoping for approval tonight so we could order steel. That's an 8-week lead time. So now, when you asked me before, it's like, I don't know if I want, can 4 weeks is a long time, then it means another 8 weeks before we can actually get beyond that.
I would frame the motion that we're postponing the approval pending review of the outstanding SUPs. I don't want to give you the impression that the site plan is going to be denied, because it's, from our perspective, we're not recommending denial of the site plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
That's good, that makes.
But we're
This
not
is-
approving it.
We're not approving it, so we
Right.
got to get the housekeeping in order, that's all.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have to dot i's and cross t's. And by
We're not
we, I
recommending
mean,
denial.
Thank you.
did you write a motion? Do we need a motion? No. I don't think we need a motion.
I don't necessarily think we need a motion. I mean, it's understood it's gonna be on the agenda
Yes,
next month. You're not really taking any action tonight.
we're not.
Housekeeping, clarifications, and
Yeah.
straightforward.
Yeah.
Okay. New business, number 4. Thank you for coming.
We're good to go.
Guys.
Yeah.
B4 district amendment. It took me a minute to remember what this was. This is on the agenda. Do you want to speak to it? Who wants to talk?
We were approached by party that's interested in buying property out there that has a kind of a combination of, it's a combination of warehousing, outdoor storage, and retail. And it doesn't fit, we're not suggesting any revisions to the ordinance to make this property comply, but it just tripped the trigger on how bad the B4 ordinance is drafted. Because the B4 ordinance, the permitted uses are, now remember, this is a distribution, warehouses, and processing district. This is about as close as Acme comes to having a light industrial district, or based on, just on what we had here with Great Lakes Trim. But when you take a look at the B4 district, currently, the permitted uses are professional offices, trade schools, vet hospital, and then all the other uses are
Contractors,
storage are all
services.
are all special use approved. So we talked, Nikki, Jeff and I talked about it, and because we looked at all the business districts which are part of the US 31 M72. The only one that's out there right now is you got the planned shopping district and you got the B4. And Jeff and I thought, Nikki too, that it would be a good opportunity just to bring it up to the planning commission and maybe suggest a rewrite of the B4 district to make it more. And what I prepared for you is something that's it's more traditional of what you would find in a warehousing, distribution, and light fabrication district. It gives you a better mix of uses than what you currently have in the ordinance. And it also gets away from that 500-foot regulation,
Which one?
the one that I think we made an ordinance amendment. Remember, if it's not 500 feet away from 72, then it requires, we got rid of the 500 feet already. We didn't change the ordinance per se.
That's different than the M72 overlay district, though.
Correct. Do they have a copy? It's not in.
Well, it's not in this package.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I didn't get that in my packet. I thought maybe
Yeah,
I
it's
just
such a
got it,
before.
and it wasn't in the online packet.
Yeah, that's something before over with the accessory use.
It wasn't in here.
Oh.
Okay, things happen. At
No,
least
that's
now
just
we'll know
for
what we would
discussion.
read.
No, I actually drafted an ordinance.
Oh,
I don't do anything,
well, that's a lot more exciting.
yeah, I mean,
I was afraid you didn't get to it, so
I-
it was left in there for
I
discussion.
got the ordinance done.
Okay, well, I mean, there's no way we could
Oh,
really
yeah, there
review
is. You wanna see it?
it right now?
Sure.
Yikes.
I can send it to her email and she can just print it off.
Okay. Is it a lot of reading?
Well, let me just go through it. I'll give you a quick narrative of what it says. Okay? You guys can tell me if we're on the right track. I kept the intent and purpose pretty much the same, except I have in here, the intent and purpose of the district is intended to accommodate those industrial uses. I inserted warehousing and storage and related activities that generate a minimum of noise, glare, odor, dust, vibration, air and water pollution, fire and safety hazards, or any other potentially harmful or nuisance characteristics. It is designed to accommodate wholesale warehousing, and I inserted the phrase agricultural sales and service-related businesses and light industrial activities whose operational and physical characteristics do not detrimentally affect any of the surrounding district. Now, these are the uses I have permitted by right. Processing and distribution facilities, including distribution and transfer centers, produce markets, recycling centers, no heavy machinery, soda, water, and soft drink bottling facilities, bakeries and confectionery making, bottling or packaging of cleaning compounds, polish, seeds, pattern making shops, printing, engraving, bookbinding, heavy truck equipment, wholesale operations, microbrewery, distillery, wine processing, and bottling operations. Under storage, I have warehousing indoor and terminal buildings, freezers and lockers, construction storage, mini or self-storage warehousing facilities. I have a thing called high-tech, which includes research and development centers, laboratories, telecommunications, data processing, computer electronic, and manufacturing equipment. And then I have quasi and public quasi facilities, medical laboratories, and essential services, which you currently have. Then I have retail establishment, building and lumber supply stores, hardware, farm, and improvement centers and sales centers, garden centers and nurseries, wholesale stores. Under automotive, I have major automotive repair establishments. Under personal service, I have veterinary hospitals and kennels and carpet cleaning establishments. And then the uses that are authorized by special use permit are contractor establishments with outdoor storage, private or nonprofit indoor recreational facilities. So I made some modifications. So I opened up the amount of permitted uses that are basically processing and distribution, storage, where the operations are conducted within an enclosed building, high-tech uses, and quasi-public facilities. Okay? And that's kind of what those are the uses that you have out there, okay? But it just gives you a little bit broader range. It's basically uses that are in larger buildings that have outdoor storage facilities or display yards. For example, out here, you could have a kitchen,
Countertop.
kind of a home improvement countertop, where they would actually do the fabrication of the countertops, but they'd also have like a small sales room where you'd go in and pick out the color of the counter, the type of counter, that type of thing. So it's those type of businesses that you would find. They actually, the majority, the principal use is fabrication in some of these, and then they would also have an attached sales, okay, sales component, okay? So you could have somebody that makes furniture, but then they could also have a small sales facility there too if you wanted to go in and buy something, or an upholstery shop. But your current ordinance doesn't allow a lot of this stuff.
It doesn't allow the retail side of the fabrication, construction.
Right.
Yeah, which, I mean, if you drive down that road,
Cut stone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do have retail
I mean, it's not,
already.
just because it's in the ordinance doesn't mean that's what it really looks like out there. You know what I mean?
So, I mean, we could talk about it next month. All right, what I can do is I can send these ordinance, I'll send it to Nikki, she can send it out to everybody, and then you can start thinking about it. We can have more of a more detailed conversation next month on it.
I think that's necessary.
Yeah, I tried to open it up a little bit, you know.
Okay. My one question is language, if we're staying consistent with other districts that allow the same uses. Jeff, you agreed with me.
I always look at it for things like that.
This is what it
He
feels
looks at
like
it for
when Jeff
consistency.
agrees with me.
Yeah, I look for problems.
That's
what I do.
First time.
Yeah, I think so. That's my only question, is that if we're really changing around the uses, that we try to keep the language consistent with the other districts that allow some of the same stuff.
Pretty close to being consistent with the international building codes too for use groups in their business and
Mhm.
things like that, so.
Okay,
Any
so
other questions?
I'll send out a copy to everybody.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say we don't need a motion on this one either. Okay,
I don't think so.
so we'll look for that, and maybe we could get that